that are wrong, they're too large, or by going to excess by the person doing things that is not needed, such as washing the stones and the likes.
Upon reaching Mina, which is between the valley called Batan Mahasir and Jamarat al-Aqaba, pilgrims are to head for Jamarat al-Aqaba, the nearest Aqaba, Jamara to Mecca, which is called the Great Jamra, and stone it with 7 consecutive pebbles. The time for stoning is after sunrise and extends until sunset. Each pebble should be thrown into the throwing place, the fenced area surrounding the pillar, whether it settles there or not after falling inside. A pilgrim should point at the fence while throwing the pebbles, not at the pillar itself, for it is not built to be stoned, but to help as a sign showing the throwing place. So it is insufficient for a pilgrim, if a pilgrim throws a pebble at the pillar, then it falls outside the fenced area. It is permissible for the weak pilgrims and those who have valid excuses to throw the pebbles at Jamarat al-Aqaba after midnight. It is also permissible for healthy pilgrims to delay stoning until midnight, yet it is not desirable for them. It is an act of the Sunnah to start throwing pebbles at Jamarat al-Aqaba as soon as a pilgrim arrives in Mina and before doing anything else, for it is regarded as a sign of greeting to Mina.
Okay, so I mentioned concerning of those things regarding after that he mentioned that the stoning of the Jamara, which is concerning, as mentioned here, that the one to be stoned on that day would be the main one. So you have 3 of these Jamarat, that these areas that are to be stoned. So the person will stone one of them, which would be the larger one on the first day. So the first day, the larger one would be stoned. That's the only one to be stoned. And the Shaykh mentioned that you have this type of pillar, or this that is there as a sign regarding where it is to be where it is to be thrown. So not per se the person's intention that it is to stone the pillar, but is to know where the stone is to fall. So at times you might find people go overboard and again excess, where people actually go in there and kind of somewhat they want to have like a physical fight with this they call the shayateen, which is this jamarat. So sometimes people can somewhat take things beyond what is required. So the main thing is the person throwing those 7 pebbles, stones inside al-Aqabat al-Kubra, and that's what's required. So the person doesn't need to do anything further to ensure that they are stoned and within the time that the Shaykh Hafidullah had mentioned. Aywa. So some concession regarding those who are daif, regarding that they can stone a little bit earlier. So giving some concession to those who are somewhat weak and those that are weak. Aywa.
On the other hand, it is desirable for a pilgrim to utter takbir upon throwing each pebble, saying, "O Allah, make it an accepted Hajj of ours that serves as a pardon for our sins." It is important to point out that a pilgrim should by no means throw pebbles at any jamra other than Jamarat al-Aqaba on the day of sacrifice, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, as this ritual is restricted to Jamarat al-Aqaba on that day.
Okay, so regarding concerning that day, which is the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, so that there's certain activities to be done, but of those activities is the stoning of the Jamarat. But I mentioned that that day is only to stone just one. So there's several of them which are 3. The person only stoned 1 on the 10th. The first day is stoning of 1. So a set of 7 stones will be thrown at that particular one, which will be the largest one. So it will be the largest one, and then other activities to be carried out. Aywa.
It is important to point out that a pilgrim should by no means throw pebbles at any jamara. After stoning Jamarat al-Aqaba, it is preferable for a pilgrim who performs Hajj as tamattu or qiran to slaughter the obligatory sacrificial animal. Such a pilgrim has to buy a sacrificial animal to slaughter and distribute its meat among the poor, keeping a share for himself to eat from.
So regarding concerning of those activities also on the 10th of the Hijjah, that for those who are performing the type of Hajj, which is either Qiran or Tamattu, then they offer their sacrifice. So from that day, they can offer their sacrifice. So as to be mentioned, the sacrifice can take a few days, But the starting point when one can offer the sacrifice is regarding on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which also kind of somewhat coincide regarding concerning that those who are performing that al-udhiyah back home. So those who did not perform Hajj, then also they'll be performing their udhiyah on that same day of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So those sacrifice is to be carried out. The person, so that's for in the case of those who are performing tamattu, that also require a sacrifice to be carried out, and also Qiran also require a form of sacrifice to be carried out. Aywa.
Afterwards, a pilgrim shaves his head or cuts his hair short, yet shaving is better, for Allah, exalted be He, says, with your heads shaved and hair shortened. Surah Al-Fath, ayat number 27. Moreover, Ibn Umar narrated, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got his head shaved during the farewell Hajj. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam invoked Allah 3 times to be merciful to those who have had their head shaved, and invoked Him only once to be merciful to those who had their hair shortened. If a pilgrim chooses to shorten his hair, then he must shorten all his hair and not only some of it. For Allah, exalted be He, says, with your head shaved and hair shortened. The aforementioned verse indicates that shaving or cutting should be applied to the whole head, not only some or certain parts of it.
The author, Hafidullah, you mentioned regarding of those other things to be carried out, is that, so also regarding concerning adhab, that this is better if the person maybe can slaughter his own animals or of those who are in his party, but if not, then others can do it on his behalf. So the person maybe can slaughter him for himself, then that's preferable. But if those who are present in his group, they can slaughter on his behalf, that also is good. Or he can just make a tawkil, he can appoint anyone to do this on his behalf. The system that they have that slaughtering, they have not designated areas where slaughtering is to take place. So the system that they have now is that you have restricted or designated areas where the person, one, carries out slaughter. So as before, it was somewhat chaotic by way of people slaughtering and leaving animals on the street. So now it has now been restricted to a specific area where the slaughter would take place, and then the animals or the meat will be distributed from there. Then I mentioned after also the acts to be carried out, al-halq al-ras, also regarding that the shaving or the qasr, or the person cutting his entire head or a portion of it. So the entire hair is to be cut, and the Shaykh kind of somewhat to clarify regarding that is for the person to kind of start to cut the entire hair or to shave everything off. So it's neither the person to cut low, the entire or a portion of the hair is to be cut, but the entire head to be done, and that's regarding male. Or the person wish to, so one of those either, and shaving is better than a person who's taken a haircut. So is shaving, as he mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ, that he supplicated for those many times regarding those who did a complete haircut, which is shaving of the head. Then he mentioned, that's concerning for male. Then he will mention regarding the next matter.
So the dua here, once you shave completely, you got it 3 times.
Aywa.
Well, he shortened once.
And the shortened ones. So both have said, showing that both are permissible, but one is more preferred. So one that is preferred is the one that he supplicated for them more times. So the ones that he supplicated for 3 times would be the one that shaved their entire head.
So this is what the ulama, they take this dua, the fact that he
Supplicate for those people.
more than once.
More than one, then that's somewhat a preference regarding that particular act.
As for a female pilgrim, she should only shorten her hair by cutting a small part equivalent a fingertip of each hair braid, or of the tips of her hair. This is because it was narrated by Ibn Abbas that the Prophet ﷺ said, shaving the hair is not a duty laid on pilgrim women, only clipping their hair is incumbent upon them. Related by Abu Dawood, At-Tarbani and Tabarani and Darqutni.
Aywa.
Another reason is that shaving a woman's head is in fact a sort of disfigurement for her. It is worth mentioning that if a female pilgrim does not have her hair braided, she may gather it and clip a part equivalent to a fingertip. It is also an act of the sunnah for a pilgrim who shaves or cuts his hair short to clip his fingernails, shorten his moustache, shave his pubic hair, and pluck out the hair of the armpits. However, it is forbidden for a pilgrim or any Muslim to shave his beard or to cut it short, as the Prophet ﷺ enjoined the growing of the beard and forbade cutting it off or cutting it short. And Muslims should obey the Prophet's command and avoid what he forbade, especially pilgrims who are undergoing such a glorious act of worship. In the case of a bald man who has little hair or no hair at all, it is desirable to pass a razor over his head as if he is shaving his head. For the Prophet ﷺ said, "If I command you to do something, then do of it as much as you can."
Yes, the author discussed concerning of those matters regarding concerning of hair on the body in general, regarding concern that he mentioned matters regarding an-nisa, as to first regarding those who are performing Hajj amongst the ladies, amongst the women, that they also are to not shave their heads, but rather they can clip a small portion of their hair as a part of their cutting of their hair. So the females also would do so, but they will not at all do shaving of the head, but they will just clip a small portion from the tip of their hair. Then he mentioned after concerning of those things regarding concerning that أن الحلق في حق النساء مثلى, that also regarding concern as clarified, this clarifies certain matters regarding that, indicating that a female that is not to cut off her hair, to shave her head completely. Then regarding concern the hukum of a female shaving her hair completely, then this is something which is not permissible, as he mentioned there in brief. Then he mentioned regarding concern that as for male, regarding concerns not of things that are under the Sharia, that under the Sunnah, that's allowed regarding that for the person either at times regarding hair on the body and certain parts of the body, that the one can shave or the person can cut it low. And he mentioned regarding concern the nails, regarding concern the shaft of the mustache, also the hair between under the armpit and also between the pubic areas, that the Sharia allowed concerning those things to be removed. So the Sharia allowed for the person to shave or to cut away those things. So he can somewhat mention those points. Then he mentioned as for the lihya, of all those that is discussed concerning those things are discussed specifically in the Sharia. So those type of hair are mentioned specifically in the Sharia regarding how to care for them. Then he mentioned here regarding as for the beard, that the facial hair for the man, that it is something la yajuz, as he all of you is not permissible for the person to shave his beard. So for one to remove of his beard, then he mentioned is something which is not allowed. So that's concerning that in general, discussing regarding those matters. Then he goes back to concerning that regarding concerning of those matters, and that concerning that what is preferred to be done, what is preferred to be done. And also the case regarding a person who may already be bald-head. So already concerned a person already bald-head, what is to be done? He mentioned a person can somewhat run the razor or the blade over his head, as just even though he's bald-head, as still somewhat carrying out the act, as carrying out this act that is required. Aywa. And the person has to cut his hair. That's a part of that. That's what the emphasis said, that the Sharia that the person as a part of the practice, the ritual practice regarding Hajj and Umrah, the person have to cut a portion of his hair. So either the person have two choices: either cut off the entire thing, the entire hair, which is shaving, or if not, then he cut off a portion of it. But he has to cut a haircut has to take place either in full or in portion. If the person does it, then he has done something which is wrong, and to be discussed that he may be required to do a fidya.
What determines a portion? So let's say, for instance, I don't want to shave my head for different reasons.
What is a portion? So the main thing the person said that a portion of the hair is cut. You understand? Not necessarily the person do half or 3/4. There's no such limit of it, but the person can somewhat where some of the hair is removed and cut, but it has to be the entire surface of the head.
So it says evenly.
Yeah, so evening.
Evenly
If it's a haircut, a normal haircut would be done. As for how much he wants off, then that goes back to the individual. But it's of those things which have the things that to be carried out regarding the person in that state who carrying out of Hajj. I said either for the female, the same thing applies, but their rules is different. That they do cut, but they would never or shouldn't cut off the entire thing, complete the ball of their head, but they cut off from the tips of their hair, they'll cut a piece. Aywa.
After stoning Jamaratul Aqaba and shaving or cutting the hair short, a pilgrim becomes in a state of semi-consecration, namely the first partial release of Ihram. It is to say, a pilgrim at this stage is partially released from the state of Ihram and everything becomes lawful for him, such as wearing sewn clothes, wearing perfume, etc., except for having sexual intercourse with his wife. To illustrate, Aisha, the Prophet's wife, radiallahu anha, said, when one of you throws pebbles at Jamaratul Aqaba, everything becomes lawful for him except the women. She also said, I applied perfume consisting of musk to Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam once before he assumed ihram and once on the day of sacrifice before circumambulating the house, i.e. the Kaaba.
Okay, so from this issue regarding concern that they mentioned concerning tahleel, so the person gonna somewhat, when they go into Hajj, they go into certain type of restriction of ihram. So it means that you have certain restrictions where there's certain thing that regarding his clothing and certain thing that he cannot do while in that state of ihram. So you wear a specific type of clothing, and also second, you have certain type of rules that he has to observe while in the state of ihram, which mean those rules of ihram, the person not allowed to do certain things. So I mentioned before the use of tib, perfume, the person having sexual relation with his wife or those type of fondling with his wife, those things are not to be done. And also it's restricted to a specific type of garment. So he mentioned regarding concerning the person after on the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, so after the person have stoned the Jamarat, so you have so he has a stone of the Jamarat and also shaven of his head, and then I'll mention other things to be done. Of those things that when the stoning of the Jamarat takes place, so you have done the stoning, then the person will come out of a semi-ihram. So the ihram, the full ihram rules now is getting being removed. So when he does the stoning, then some of those rules now have been removed, and the person now can do those things that was before haram. So you mentioned that the person after stone of Jamarat and also have shaved his head or cut off his hair, then the person now that is in a al-hil, is in a state of where things now become permissible for him to some degree. So after those things, everything, so the person now can now change his garment. So he doesn't have to wear that white garment. He can wear normal clothing, normal shoes, trainers, whatever the shoes may be. So so the person can go back to those normal clothing that is normally worn. He can put on now full clothing. Then also of those things that are tib, regarding concerning of things of wearing of perfume, fragrance. Now those things have been lifted. All the rules are lifted except for having relation with intimacy. That now will come later. That will come later. That will be the second stage of the person now coming out of a state of ihram. So it's just the first stage, which is it occurs start on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah after Jamarat, and also shaving of the head or cutting off the hair. Aywa.
You know, is marriage contract, is that part of that stage?
Yeah, everything is removed except for Nisa. So everything is removed except for relation with his wife. So all of the other things, we just mentioned some as an example. So whatever of those rules that were, the restriction that were there, all of them have been removed except for one, which is relation with his wife. They mention a hadith concerning إِذَا رَمَيْتُمْ وَحَلَقْتُمْ, that after you have done the stoning and also you have done the shaving of the head, فَقَدْ حَلَّ لَكُمْ التِّيبُ وَالثِّيَابُ وَكُلِّ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا النِّسَاءِ. So he mentioned the hadith, which is the hadith of Aisha anha, and the hadith is collected by Abu Sa'id, which is the hadith, is by Sa'id ibn Mansur. So the hadith is one of the collective hadiths, Sa'id ibn Mansur. That he has a book, but as a portion of that book is available. So a book in hadith, but a portion of that book is available. and also the hadith with similar the hadith of that meaning, also narrated by Abu Dawood. So the hadith is narrated by Abu Dawood in his Sunan. But Abu Dawood, rahimahullah, that when he mentioned the hadith, this hadith, then he mentioned that concerned the hadith that they mentioned, هذا hadith da'if. Abu Dawood, when he mentioned this hadith, he mentioned هذا hadith da'if. This hadith is weak. Al-Hajjaj lam yara al-Zuhri wa lam yasma minhu. So then he mentioned the reason why the hadith is said to be da'if. So he mentioned the reason, that is, one narrator who's Hajjaj, that he did not see or heard from Zuhri or Zuhri. He didn't hear from a Zuhri. So Zuhri was the person that he's narrating upon, but there was no, they didn't meet, nor did he hear from him the hadith. So they said that's the indication, there's that inqita, that there's a breakage in the isnad. So based upon that reason, all the hadith he mentioned had the hadith daif. That's Abu Dawood when he mentioned the hadith. So that's concerning his commentary on the hadith. Then you'll find others that have commented on the hadith. We have of contemporary Sheikh Albani and also Sheikh Shu'aib Arnaout, that they all the hadith to be sahih. So Sheikh Arnaout and also Sheikh Albani, that they mentioned the hadith is sahih. So Sheikh Arnaout in his checking of Abu Dawood, that he mentioned, yes, the hadith, the isnad of weakness. But he said you have other narrations that are there, that are similar, mutaba'at, they call mutaba'at, other similar narrations that kind of somewhat give some strength according to that, the hadith of an asl and has a basis. But even though this particular isnad in Abu Dawood is weak, but you have other narrations that are better than this one or equal. So when they all added or put together, they are considered to be sahih. Sheikh Albani didn't mention much in his book regarding that matter. It requires, as some of his books, he doesn't go into detail regarding his critiquing of hadith. Just mention hadith da'if or sahih. Like in his Sunan al-Arba. So Shaykh Albani rahimahullah, of his checking of Sunan al-Arba, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, he divide them into two, sahih wa da'ifa. So all the hadith that he owes to be sahih, in for example Abu Dawood, he put them in certain volumes, about 3 volumes, 4 volumes, and another volume, he put separate volumes, he put all the hadith that he owes to be da'if. So you can somewhat separate between da'if or sahih. And just mentioned sahih, Hassan doesn't go into detail as to the reason, because that Abu Dawood who narrate the hadith, he said the hadith is da'if. So those are the hadith is authentic, then why? Because you have someone already from the ulama of past and have established that there's some issue with the hadith. So either you have to kind of somewhat can respond to some of the errors that he has mentioned regarding the hadith. But you have Sheikh Albani, you have other books that may go into details on that matter. But the Shahid Ibn Arnaout mentioned, yes, this isnad is daif. So he also acknowledged the isnad that is mentioned by Abu Dawood is daif, but then he mentioned other narrations. Aywa.
A pilgrim reaches his first partial release of ihram after fulfilling 2 of the following 3 rituals: throwing the pebbles at Jamarat al-Aqaba, having the hair shaved or shortened, performing ifada, going forth Tawaf, followed by say, going between Safa and Al-Marwa, for those obliged to perform say. However, the second complete release of ihram is achieved after performing all the aforesaid 3 rituals. When a pilgrim fulfills them, everything that was unlawful due to ihram becomes lawful for him, even sexual intercourse.
So it's mentioned regarding concern of that day, regarding that the person now is coming out of a state of ihram, that by doing, so you have certain activities to be done. If he does the first 2, which are concerning that the stoning, and then the second regarding cutting off the hair, then the person now will come out of that state partially, where everything is allowed to carry out except for intercourse. Then I mentioned that when he fulfills the 3rd one, which is concerning that at-tawaf al-ifada. So when a tawaf is carried out, ma'asai, and also the person does sa'i. Then after you have completed that, then now he's come out of a full state of ihram and go back to normalcy type of thing. So that's concerning that matter. That, but this considered that a person performing Hajj, like reality, maybe that today, that day is a day activity. That's why because of the, it's could be done quickly if you're on your own with a few people, because there's millions of people. So it becomes like a day. So to move to do tawaf, one circle, one tawaf around the Kaaba, it takes hours. Because remember, you have millions of people and you have to know what time to go. You understand? So the person, if you have experience, can I say try to see what time, but you find those who just go straight. They just do everything in one go, one after another. Now, which would be, I said, if you have millions, well, sometimes they have 7 million people there? You understand? 7 million people doing the same thing. 5 million people. Then, you understand, you have to be very conscious regarding crowd. Okay, so all those people kind of somewhat move in the same direction. So that's why concerning even the Jamarat, that the stoning area, that initially have what was one level. Then they had another level. Now they have several other levels, just so as to, you understand, to ease the pressure on the crowds. So that even though we said that it could seem simple as being read, but as for the practicality of it, it's kind of somewhat, it requires a lot, mainly because of the crowds. So we said moving becomes difficult. Doing tawaf and sahi, that alone take hours.
How many hours?
I said it can take maybe an hour to do one.
Really?
Yeah. Come said the first, you have now several floors, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the Kaaba to do tawaf. So the first one, it's going to be mad pack. The first one, it's going to be packed out. Where people are just moving, the people like I said, like sardines, literally. Just one person behind another. So you have to guard yourself and all that. So you have to, but yeah, so you find those people move. So you like a step type of thing. Upstairs will be, as you go further up, little maybe more room, but still will be packed. It will still be packed. But the main thing, that the delays will occur due to the crowd. Delays will occur due to the crowd. Aywa. So the person move from Muzdalifah. Then he has to go to Mina. And then he has to go then to Mecca. So those are the 3 spots, the 3 years, the personal. So he's starting off from Muzdalifah that morning. Then he goes to the Jamarat. Then some people make it simple. That with the Jamarat is, you have to cut the hair, they have barber shops that you can go. But he said that will be an next queue, isn't it? Then you have those guys who do you understand, you take your own razors and you try to do your own thing. Now, yeah. Then just be mindful of, you see some crazy things regarding haircuts. Now, so when you finish Jamarat, we say a lot of, then it was, you understand, people used to get crushed. So, many years, every year you might have maybe less now, but before, people used to be crushed because of the crowd size. We find that this may be the Jamarat, so you have to know, people are coming, but, and then some people want to come from this side, or from this side, so, there's fighting to get there, that became the problem. So you find in every year or so, that people sometime before would get crushed. So that's somewhat they made them now much different levels. Then also he said after this is the Jamarat, then move to Mina. You still that in the Mina area. Then you do your haircut. Then you have to move then to Mecca. So all the mothers know. So Mecca you have to walk. Like today, it's easier to walk than to take bus or to take a car because of the crowd size and also the traffic on the road. So it's easier to just walk. If you said they are fit, young man, young person, it's as easy to just walk it out with a road system now that they are having in place and also the train system. That may change later. It may change. We'll see inshallah ta'ala in the coming years. But so the shahid that when a person has those 3 activities, main ones to be done, al-rami, then also al-halq wa taksir, then also at-tawaf, and the tawaf of the Kaaba with also as-sa'i. Aywa. So with the tawaf, when a person, for example, arrives in Mecca to do the tawaf, so initial concern tawaf al-qudum, that the person in this tawaf Yes, so they make Tawaf. Normally we'll discuss Tawaf. They'll discuss those things later. We'll discuss concerning, but making Tawaf, then after finishing Tawaf, then the person will go and do a sa'i. And that will be for him the activity of that day. That will be the activities of that day.
I just got regarding the cutting of the hair. Obviously, isn't it important that when you cut your hair to dispose of it in a particular way? Because remember, you got.
And so that's for the person to be mindful of those. I said that so those things that is now you have to just be mindful.
7 million people.
And sometimes yes, you may be more mindful because because of there's so much crowd. And for example, in the barber shops, if you go, even if you just go to that free Ramadan, when the time it is just hectic, you understand that the barber shops just want people to just move, isn't it? You understand? So they have these things that boom, there. But the barber shop is not a problem regarding getting hair because they'll clean it. You understand? But you know what you have, piles, tons of hair that they're cleaning. The ones that become more, you have to be mindful of, is the guys who do the kind of somewhat, on the street, sit you down and get their own thing on. Those are the ones you have to just be more careful of. You understand? Because most of the time the person and he's charging you, he just buys some, big razors and just try to, shave your head with that. And if you're not experienced, you can see people, you see some cuts, you see some not nice things. So a person can bring his own trimmer and says sometimes knowing today that's how to prepare yourself. You understand regarding how to prepare yourself. Now, if you believe that amongst your team, amongst your group, you have people, so you bring a few, electric shavers or shavers, battery shaver or whatever, you can do your own self to make it easier and quicker. Because I said the queuing is a long one. Sometimes just trying to find a barber shop becomes just a task itself that goes for hours. Because everywhere you go will be what? Packed. Because always remember, there's always going to be someone ahead of you. Don't believe that you're going to always be the first. Always have people ahead of you. They're thinking how to do things quick ahead. So you're going to always have that. So, you understand? But that's the person is being mindful. If you have millions of people, you understand, facilities only can serve for so many people at one time. But that's what I'm saying, important regarding concerning doing things like Hajj and Umrah. That was said, it's not just reading from the book. As people who have is if you go with a team, the team leader should have experience. He has the ilm, but also have certain experience of know how to go around certain things. Because after so your person does know how to manage crowd type of thing, know to manage crowd, how the crowd move and how to move the different direction.
You did have crowd control there, the police.
And sometimes the cabin said that like inside, but after a while it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult. That's what I'm saying, even in our streets, sometimes when they have these, gatherings, it takes a lot of manpower. I must say that this event is like, over, for example, typically will be 5 million people plus. How much police force do you think you need for that? To just monitor that? Some said, but some said, so what they do said, the army gets involved. So now they use like an army to get involved. Because even now regarding Umrah, the busy time, the army generally have people out there trying to, you understand?
That will be people who they import because they don't have them.
No, from the army.
They don't have the numbers.
They use only their armies. They only use their own army. They only use their people. So you have two. You said the army is just off the people helping. You have volunteers in different things, but the army will be a part of those who are volunteering. I said, they do different things. You said over the past couple of years, they somewhat become, the people they become more a wider body of people they get involved. They use more wider. Said when we did early years, like in the Jamia, not in the Jamia, but in the Haram, that only specific, during that time, for example, you have normal lessons now. Then during that, like the peaks, especially concerning that Hajj time coming up, they start preparing weeks before. They start to get more mashaykh. Many of the mashaykh in the university, the professors and the teachers, they start to give lessons, just about Hajj or just general lessons. Huh? How many?
How much army?
60,000 personnel.
Yeah.
No, not really.
Yeah. So it says the university says that. So the university will have in Haram they'll invite different mashaykh to have lessons. You understand? You have not many people now, later you said, said in the early 20s, what they started to do is, alhamdulillah, they started to kind of recognize, because people come from various countries all over the world for Umrah and for Hajj. So you have all those people sitting in the Haram, but at some of our early days, when we were there in the 90s, late 90s, there was those Arabic teachers teaching. Then in like in the early 20s, 20, then they started to now add people from the students who are doing like their PhD, more advanced students. They'll ask them now to start to speak in their language, to communicate to their people, now, which is inside the Haram. So the opportunity, and some of the brothers got some opportunities, kind of somewhat to do things either outside or inside, but in your own language. But you have like a somewhat to get, so they will choose the individual to do those type of lectures, to speak to your people in your own language, which is, alhamdulillah, is good. Now, which is good. For even now, you have like Sheikh Wasi Allah and others, that even now it become like a practice, standard practice. Now we find that the regular lessons that are done by people in various languages. So you have now various lessons that are done in various languages from either from graduates who are students who are there in their higher studies, or mashaykh who may be who have many languages, speak many languages, that like they'll do these type of lectures, which is alhamdulillah, which is good. So I think the next stage, I'm not sure, that and also they'll have during the days of Hajj, they have like these mashaykh who are posted all over the place in the little type of, you understand, we can ask them questions. Then you have all type of security, but said the security level, so you have security, you have volunteers, but controlling people is difficult. Now, so sometimes they bring the army also to, you know, can say keep the crowd control, but it's a lot of, said with 5 million plus people, it's how much you need a nation to have that level of, I'm saying over the years people have died. You understand? So because of, you understand, controlling people still at certain points become difficult. To control people at certain points become difficult. Because of the jamarat of people there, if you have people there trying to control a crowd, they might, you understand, be injured because of, I said, people sometimes get overcome by the situation and you just lose control of the crowd. Aywa.
After throwing the pebbles at Jamarat al-Aqaba, slaughtering the sacrificial animal and shaving or shortening the hair, a pilgrim then proceeds to Mecca to perform ifadah, going forth Tawaf. After that, a pilgrim performs say if he is performing Hajj at Tamattu or as Qiran or Ifrad, but he has not performed it following the arrival Tawaf. Yet, if a pilgrim is performing Hajj as Qiran or Ifrad and has already performed say following the arrival Tawaf, then he does not have to perform another say after Ifadah Tawaf. These 4 rituals are to be performed in the following order, if possible: stoning Jamarat al-Aqaba, slaughtering the sacrificial animal, shaving or shortening the hair, and performing the Ifadah Tawaf followed by say. Performing these rituals in this order is an act of the Sunnah, so there is no sin on a pilgrim if he has to perform them in a way other than the aforesaid order. This is because the farewell Hajj, the Prophet ﷺ's one and only pilgrimage, whenever a pilgrim violated that order of rituals and told him, he ﷺ replied, "Do it and there is no harm, sin." However, sticking to this order is better, for the Prophet ﷺ performed them in that way.
Yes, as concerning the Shaykh Hafidullah, he mentioned regarding concerning of those activities to be done, that he mentioned them, and that preferred for them to be done in a certain order. As he mentioned, al-Rami, al-Jamara, al-Aqaba, to be done first, then al-Nahar, then a person do the slaughtering. So, but also, then to do the slaughtering, then also do al-Halq, or taksir, then do the shaving or the cutting of the hair, then go to Mecca and do at-Tawaf, wa sa'i. So that's the best order. The person, if he can stick to that order. But if the person, by whatever the reason may be, is unable to go through on those orders, then that order, then whichever that he does, then they're done. The means that they're done, regardless of the order they are done in. So that's concerning those matters. Was it a system that said doing is like because now you find people go in teams and in groups. And they usually have, like, if you go to a group, that they have buses, transport provided. You understand? Doing certain things based upon, in that order sometimes, depending, you understand, based upon availability. So sometimes a team, that group with their buses, may not per se do this order. Whatever the reason may be, but that is the main point of the person, he carry out these things as best as possible in order. If all, that's good. If 3 out of the 4, then that's better. So try to do as much of the order as possible. So the easier one regarding Sunnah of the Jamarat, Al-Halq, those are usually easier, the 2 to be done. But as for the person to do the stoning, then go and do the slaughtering, because the slaughtering is the next area. And then come back and do and then after then come and do his haircut. Those things could be done, but the activities are all things the person organized themselves. How the person organized themselves, and also being taken into account the crowd. Take into account regarding the crowd movements. But as he mentioned, what is better, but also what is sufficient. Aywa?
Just so I understand it. So if he's doing tamattu, he does he can do sa'i first, then make tawaf. He's doing tamattu. And then if he's doing
Quran?
Quran or mufrad,
Ifrad.
then he has to do it after.
Do what after?
He has to do tawaf, then sa'i.
Hey, something that, because in a sense of a distinction, may between tamattu and the 2 others, Quran wal Ifrad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the things concerned the person who's doing tamattu, if, for example, when he first arrives in Mecca, he performs Umrah. Right? So the person performing tamattu, he does Umrah and Hajj. Right? So he has, with the Umrah, he'll perform Tawaf. Then after Tawaf, he'll go and do a sa'i. So that sa'i, it can be, you understand, so the Tawaf, he can do, but the sa'i, he can use that sa'i could be sufficient for his Hajj. You understand? But as for the one who's doing Qiran and Ifrad, then they still have they still have to do it, because it's there for Qiran is Umrah and Hajj are 2 separate things. You understand? So you perform. And as for Qiran, he must, because when the person are performing which one? And not Qiran, which is the Ifrad, then he just perform Umrah. He just performing Hajj only. So he's not doing Umrah. You understand? So when he performs his Tawaf, he has to do it with sa'i. He has to do it with sa'i, because he's not doing any form of Umrah before he starts. He goes straight into Hajj. Clear?
Which one's an obligation?
Which?
For Hajj to be accepted?
In what sense?
Like there's Hajj tamattu, Quran, and
They're all accepted.
Now, so all of them is accepted. We mentioned that all of them are allowed. Now, the only discussion is which one is preferred to be done. The difference that, so you have those 3 types of Hajj, or ways in which a person can perform Hajj. So we have those 3 ways. Now the person either some of the ulama, they discuss which is the best one. So some mention because of, if the person, for example, because some of them include doing Umrah and Hajj together, they give more precedent to that one. Because the person now carrying out 2 things, which is important. Hajj and also Umrah in one journey. Right? So if you fulfill that, according to some, you have completed this, they see as Umrah being wajib, just as Hajj has been wajib. So it is preferred the one that comes with more activities, which is, they said, tamattu and qarin, they prefer those 2, because you have more more things that are done.
But the Prophet was recorded as doing tamattu.
Now, Islam, he did Qiran. And then, but he put that, some hadith indicate that if he was to repeat, he would have done tamattu. So some men mention that. So even though some mention because he did Qiran, that show that is better. But he somewhat at the intention that if he was to repeat, he would have done tamattu. So they sound those who take tamattu as being the more preferred one. Aywa.
As for Tawaf, circumambulating the Kaaba, a pilgrim has to start it from the black stone, standing aligned with it and kissing it if possible, or touching it with his right hand. If this is unavailable due to the huge throng of pilgrims, it is sufficient for a pilgrim just to wave to the black stone instead, without pushing others or thronging to reach it.
Hey, so regarding concern that the person are doing tawaf. So if tawaf concerned that the person will go and you'll have the Kaaba to his left, and so the Kaaba will be to his left side. So the person start where the black stone is. So the starting point and the ending point would be the black stone. Every tawaf is considered, goes back to that, the point of the black stone. So you start with the black stone. So in starting on the black stone, that a person, if he's able, so you have different ways of starting and what can be done with the black stone. The person is able to go there and put even his forehead down and kiss, and then that's allowed. Or the person is able can touch it and then kiss his hand, then that's allowed. Or if the person, for example, you have like a staff, a rod, that he can touch it and kiss it, then that's also allowed. Or if the person can't do any of those, then he just points.
Right or left?
If the person points, any of them said that ideally with the right hand. So the person just point, so that's concerning the thing. So if he points, so he doesn't kiss and point. He doesn't do that. So not kiss and then, you understand? Or when he points and he kisses and then he just point, and that's it. So that's concerning of the ways. Also, that's the person will start with today's time. Now you have like signs. The person can to indicate where you are, type of thing, and you'll know by the crowd. So people, you understand, you'll know by the crowd movements. When you're there, you can feel that everything kind of stop. As you get closer, everything is slower, and you can feel that people are actually stopping to Bismillah and they move off, or Allahu Akbar. Then also with a person performing a tawaf, then normally the person, when you start your first tawaf, when you enter, then you can somewhat do the expose of the right shoulder. In this one, no. In this one, no. So the general thing concerning even the exposing of the shoulder only done when the person doing tawaf. Al-Khudum. So the exposing of the, so sometimes for a person that he goes on, from the day that he put on his ihram, his right shoulder is exposed. Until he finish, take it off. Then that's incorrect. So the exposing of the right shoulder is only to be done when the person performing tawaf. And then, so when he starts, he expose. When he ends, he remove it. Or cover his shoulders. But so the practice is that the person from a minute they put on the ihram, they wait like that until the end. Which is said that's incorrect. That is incorrect.
It doesn't cover, it didn't cover that thing. I don't think we've covered that. It literally, like, in terms of the ihram itself, like, dressing on the ihram, he doesn't go into detail.
It didn't go into details.
Yeah,
so that,
this bit's covered, it doesn't.
some books are mukhtasar, so the author might say, sometimes because the mukhtasar are summary, that certain things that they may leave, you choose as to what to include and what not in what to include, where in certain things it is left to, because maybe something become well popular, where people can somewhat know what to wear in ihram, or it is left for the teacher, depending on the student and their class, as to how much detail now to add to what has been mentioned. So it has given a guide, but then for the teacher, he know to expand depending on how much information he wants to add to what is mentioned. So I said, but he didn't mention a detail in that detail.
If he does do what you said.
He does who?
The person, the person that's carrying out Hajj, if he exposes his right shoulder the whole time.
What happened? No, it's actually still acceptable. You understand? But he said he doesn't say. But said the most you find a person that they become very dark, that area, and like burned for some people. You understand? Because the sun is very hot. So yes, you see that very bad tan type of thing. But what's that? Is Hajj still acceptable? But that act is an incorrect act because of the misunderstanding that people have, that they believe that whether performing Umrah or Hajj, from a minute you put on for the male the ihram, then he has to expose is right. So he's in the plane waiting, he's in the bus going for Mecca, and it is exposed. No, it's not like that. It shouldn't be weird. It's only to be done at a certain point, which is when performing tawaf.
It's just
And that's the right. Anyway, so after thing will be tawaf will be like so exposed of the right in general. I said no, but for this one no. But other time normally it will be done. Also the person will do like another running. But said all those things on the June Hajj becomes, you understand, to start up regarding concern that some of the first three moving fast pace, then that becomes, you understand, with the crowd size become difficult. So I said those things you have certain things which have the sunnah that even concerning after performing tawaf, that so for every time the person goes and says Allahu Akbar and kind of somewhat start from there. Also that so certain things will be done as a part of tawaf. The person being in tahara is a part of tawaf we discussed before in bab of tahara. So the person ideally to be in a state of tahara. So those are the things that certain things to be observed also regarding tawaf. But some of those things are left to the not mentioned. Everything in detail is not mentioned here.
To make wudu, for example, see like you start to make wudu, at times you find like maybe there's massive queue to use the toilet to break your wudu when you're doing the tawaf. So is it recommended for the person to make the wudu or just continue, or it's good to be
make wudu?
Nah, you say it's better for the person to be in tahara when they start the tawaf.
As a other concept, so you have tahara, you have al-kubra wa sugra. So regarding concern ulama is the person regarding concern that in al-kubra, no, mean that you need a state of janaba. It requires to perform a woman in a state of haid. Then they are not to perform tawaf. But regarding concern as-sugra, regarding tahara to sugra, that person may just need wudu, pass wind, comes that he can take a while to perform tawaf. You understand? So you find a discussion between the ulama is performing tawaf in general that the person must be in a state of tahara. So that those who make a distinction between al-kubra wa sugra, that for the person a state of major then requires tahara, meaning janaba. As for the person as sugra, then it's not conditional what afdal is preferred to be done. So you might find a situation, a person is starting, he's in his third, there's, you understand, you can't, to come out and to come back is going to be difficult. So in that case, you understand, if a person that can still continue is tawaf, because even though the state of ghayr tahir, but so that goes back to that discussion between the ulama regarding so aywa. Okay. So for tawaf, you might find that people also with tawaf that is allowed, a person can be carried. So someone can carry someone. They have things in place for people who are that can be carried regarding making tawaf. But also that can so that they have a system in place regarding that. So someone can be carried in a wheelchair or whatever system that is there. Whatever they have in place, the person can somewhat stick to that. So the system that they have in place, that the person is stick to that system because it's there for a reason. For the type of things, so the person stick to those things. So someone can be carried while performing a tawaf. Other things you might find that is common, but outside that a person leading the people, a group, and they're making, they're reading a specific type of dua, supplication. A person mentioned dua, and everyone listens, Ameen, or repeating after him. Then also that is not needed. That's of the ahdath that the people have brought about. Now something new the people have now have in place. So the person make his own personal supplication. When the person want to read Quran or make supplication, that's is allowed those various things, but not to do it in a form of a way of repeating what is being said by someone or being led by others. Aywa.
These 4 rituals are to be performed in order. As for tawaf, a pilgrim has to start it from the black stone, standing aligned with kissing it with it and kissing it if possible, or touching it with his right hand. If this is unavailable due to a huge throng of pilgrims, it is sufficient for a pilgrim to wave to the black stone instead without pushing others or thronging to reach it. From the black stone as a starting point, a pilgrim begins the first round of tawaf, clocks counterclockwise, keeping the Kaaba on his left and occupying himself with supplications, the remembrance of Allah and the recitation of Quran. Upon reaching the Yemeni corner, a pilgrim should touch it if possible, but not kiss it, and recite when going between the Yemeni corner and the black stone, Our Lord, give us in this world that which is good, and in the hereafter that which is good, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. Surah Baqarah 201.
So of those things regarding as mentioned regarding concerning at the Kaaba, then you have concern that everything starts with the person starting point with the black stone, and then he goes around, so the anti-clockwise. Then you have a next corner which is called the Yemeni Corner. So you have a next corner which is called the Yemeni Corner. That corner is also exposed, that the person can touch it if he's able, type of thing. If not, the person must go by. So that's concerning the other corner, which is there's no kissing of that corner. So for example, this is the Kaaba. So you have, this is the black stone from this point. So the person will start here, and they'll go with the Kaaba. You know that you have this, as we know concerning the issue of the Kaaba, that you have like a niche that is up front. That's a part of the original foundation of the Kaaba. So the building, somewhat what we have today, is somewhat smaller in size compared to the original building. So the original building size was much bigger, but Quraysh, when they were building after the rebuilding of the Kaaba, that they only want to use halal money, and they run out of funds. So rather than build on the original foundation, they kind of somewhat made it smaller. So you have a part that you see like a niche type of building. That's supposed to be a part of the original building. You understand? That's considered to be inside. Yeah. So that's a part of the original building. So you're not to go in through it, but go around it normally. So the person will go around, and then we reach this corner, the corner before the Yemeni corner, before the black stone, you have the Yemeni corner, which will be this one. At that one, at times it is exposed. You can see the original, you can see the building. So with that one, the person also, the author mentioned that it can be touched. So the person really can touch it, but there's no kissing. So only touch type of thing that as he mentioned there. Then the supplication that is said between walking from here to there. So the person from the Yemeni corner walking to the black stone, then the person that is dua is to be said, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. But yes, there's some kalam about authenticity of that hadith. But you have some kalam. So I didn't mention concerning the source, but as for that, there's some discussion regarding the authenticity of that particular hadith. But aywa.
By reaching the black stone again, a pilgrim would have completed one full round of Tawaf. Then a pilgrim approaches and kisses the black stone, or at least waves at it, and starts the second round, and so on until he finishes 7 rounds.
As that's concerned, that so 7 rounds to be done. So you might find that the person also sometimes forget how much he is doing. So you always go back to what he's certain of. So if he has doubt, is this the 5th or the 6th, then he goes to the one which is the least, which would be he's certain of 5. So go to the 5th, because the doubt is on, is it actually 6? Did I do 6 or 7? So the person go back to 6. So can somewhat follow that method regarding that matter. Aywa.
There are 13 prerequisites for the validity of Tawaf as follows. Number 1, being a Muslim. Number 2, being sane. Number 3, having the intention of performing Tawaf. Number 4, concealing one's awrah. Number 5, being in a state of ritual and physical purity. Number 6, completing 7 rounds of circumambulation. Number 7, circumambulating counterclockwise, keeping the Kaaba on one's left. And number 8, circumambulating the whole Kaaba, avoiding passing through Hijr al-Ismail and ascending it and walking on its crest. Number 9, circumambulating on foot if possible. Number 10, observing succession while performing the 7 rounds of Tawaf, unless there is a call for prayer or there is a funeral prayer to perform. In such cases, a pilgrim is to interrupt his Tawaf and offer the prayer, and then resume Tawaf from where he stopped and completes the remaining rounds. Number 11, circumambulating within the borders of Masjid al-Haram. Number 12, beginning each round of Tawaf at the black stone. Number 13, ending the round at the black stone as well. After performing the ifadah, going forth tawaf, it is a confirmed act of the sunnah for a pilgrim to offer 2 rak'ah, units of prayer. They are recommended to be performed at the standing place of Ibrahim if possible. Otherwise, a pilgrim might perform them elsewhere in the sacred mosque or haram, the sanctuary. It is an act of the sunnah to recite Surah Al-Kafirun to disbelievers in the first rak'ah and Surah Ikhlas, sincerity of faith, in the second.
And then after mentioned, after discussing concerning that matter relating to Tawaf. So regarding Tawaf, you mentioned there are certain conditions that should be in place, or the person have to observe while performing Tawaf. So he listed some of those, conditions. Some of those conditions, so you mentioned what is these condition. Then after then he mentioned regarding matters relating to rakatain khalf maqam Ibrahim. So after a person completes his tawaf, then a person will pray behind maqam Ibrahim. So you have this spot or area where a person will go try to pray behind that area. That's of those sunnah to be done, or those acts to be done as a part of the person's tawaf, as a part of the person's tawaf. So you have a spot normally that is to be done. If it's too crowded, it can be prayed anywhere in the masjid. So to find out the exact area or that area where it's ideal to be prayed, if due to the crowd size, the person unable to pray in that area, then the person can pray it anywhere in the masjid, and that would still fulfill what is said to be khalf maqam Ibrahim. Aywa.
And each to be recited following Al-Fatiha. Afterwards, a pilgrim heads towards Safa to perform a sa'i going between Safa and Marwa. When a pilgrim first reaches As-Safa, he ascends it saying Allahu Akbar thrice and then says, there is no deity but Allah alone, who has no partner. To him belongs dominion, and to him belongs all praise. He gives life and causes death, and he is ever living, who never dies. And his hands is all good, and he is over all things omnipotent. After that, a pilgrim descends the hill of Safa and heads for Al-Marwa, starting the first round. While so doing, a pilgrim is to walk at a normal pace, but to jog when being between the 2 green marked posts. And then a pilgrim continues walking normally towards the hill of Marwa. When a pilgrim reaches Marwa, he ascends it and repeats what he has said on As-Safa. By doing so, the first round is complete. Then he descends Al-Marwa heading for As-Safa, assuring walking where walking is designated and jogging where jogging is designated. The pilgrim continues this procedure until he completes 7 rounds, ending at Al-Marwa. Going from Safa to Al-Marwa is a round and returning is another.
And so after the person, after this concerning Maqam Ibrahim, then one then will go to the next station will be concerning performing a sa'i. Where I mentioned that it starts concerning with between those 2 mountains, which is As-Safa wal Marwa. So the person first will start regarding concerning that As-Safa, then go towards Al-Marwa. So go back and forth 7 times, and after completion of that, also that to be done 7 times. That to be done 7 times. The only thing that is different with this, that the person has to be that at a certain point that he will walk normal, so normal movements, walking. Then at a certain point, a person can somewhat move, pick up the pace, and you have markers to show the person as to where that to be done. You have certain markers where the person is to pick up the pace and jog in between those 2 markers. Aywa.
When performing sa'i going between Safa and Marwa, it is desirable for a pilgrim to be occupied with making supplications, reciting the Quran, and mentioning and remembering Allah. There is no particular supplication to be made during sa'i, so one may make any supplication he likes. As for the conditions of the validity of sa'i, they are as follows: having the intention of performing sa'i. Number 2, completing 7 full rounds, beginning from Safa and ending at Marwa. Number 3, having performed Tawaf before sa'i.
So those are the that he ends, the author ends regarding this matter where he discussed concerning those give us a general idea regarding how to perform Hajj and what to be done on each day. So regarding the first 3 or the first few days, that these are things to be done. So he ends regarding concerning that the sa'i between as-safa wal marwa out to be done, and also the condition that I mentioned. He mentioned an-niyya, al-istikmal ma bayna as-safa wal marwa, that a person ensure that he does the full length between both, and also third, tuqaddam at-tawaf alayh, that a person also must have proceeded by performing at-tawaf. So that's concerning those things. So as for as-sa'i, then tahara is not a condition. So a person does not need to be in a state of tahara in performing that particular act. So that inshallah ta'ala we will end stop for today and continue next week. Wabillahi ta'ala tawfiq.